The National Intel Report. Again, this is Paul Draken, sitting in for John Stadtmiller with Gerald Celente. And Mr. Celente, how do people subscribe to the Trends Journal?
Very simply, TrendsJournal.com, TrendsJournal.com. And Paul, we know that people are having a difficult time out there. You know, there's the political world, the media world, and the real world. And in the political world and the media world, all they do is reflect their own worlds. And their worlds are way out of touch with what's going on in the real world and on Main Street. And so we have a discount request page there. It's a very simple form to fill out. No private information. Just tell us basically what you could afford, and we'll do the best to meet your price. Because we want to make the Trends Journal available to everyone. We just put a series of Trends in the News features that I do every day, going back to a year and a half ago, in me talking about a bank holiday. And also I have one up there that we just put up on February 27th. I said, watch out for the equity markets in March and April. And I went back to 2000, actually 1999, and it's all in black and white. I had predicted that the dot-com bubble would burst by the second quarter of 2000. And it did, of course, in March. So March, we said, was the big month. And here we are in March. And it's like kind of March and October because there's cyclical things. People are over the high of the new year, and in October, they're seeing how sales are really doing for the Christmas season in terms of inventory, in terms of purchasing. So those are two important months. So anyway, we're putting out information. I could honestly say in the Trends Journal, we really write history before it happens, and there's a money-back guarantee, so you risk nothing.
Well, the reality is you're analyzing global data. You're boiling it down into what has occurred in the past, what's occurring presently, and what's most likely going to occur in the future based on history. So you got to have something. You got to have some kind of roadmap, Gerald. And the Trends Journal is as fine a roadmap as I've seen anywhere. So you do a great job on it.
Thank you. Yeah, we put our heart and soul into it. Yes, it's 60 pages, this last one, of advertising free, content. There's nothing like it. And again, social, as you said, economic, political, geopolitical, we cover the world. And we're political atheists. We don't take sides on any issues. And by the way, Paul, that's what's stopping so many people. We're writing the spring issue now that'll be out in a couple of weeks. And one of the feature points we're hitting on is, I don't want to hear it. I mean, everybody listening to this show knows the same story. You start telling people what's going down, and I don't want to hear it. Oh, you're a pessimist. I don't want to hear it. No, it makes, I don't want to hear that negativity. I don't want to hear it. The ship is heading for an iceberg. Hey, wasn't the music great last night and dinner terrific?
Well, I'll tell you, Gerald, I'm looking, again, like you, looking at this, and this is what I've concluded, is you and I and this network, we're going to reach out to maybe 2 to 5% of the population, and they are going to share the message, at least part of it, with maybe another 10 or 15%, and that pretty much is going to be the extent of our influence. So the majority of individuals have already chosen dependence over reality. As long as someone is paying their bills, feeding them, they get a government check, they don't want to know. So you're absolutely right. But your publication is for those that are interested and want to know what's coming down the pike.
Yeah, and again, Paul, it's not even those people that get the government check. They're never going to be able to, comprehend it. They're not the problem is the ones that can understand and refuse to understand because they don't want to believe that they've been conned, and they don't they don't have the self-respect to admit that they've been had. So, for example, when you look at what's going on now, we're losing all our rights under our new Attorney General, who's the henchman for the death of the Constitution. He's the hangman. All he is he's just pulling the rope. And if this was going on under Bush, for example, you would hear all those liberals screaming bloody murder when it was going on under Bush. But all of a sudden, they have lockjaw. And you could show them fact after fact after fact how Obama is out-bushing Bush, and they refuse to look at the facts. That is the one that's holding it back, as I see it, because... Well, I'm sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, well, the reality is those that, as you pointed out, I mean, I'm looking at Cyprus, and one of the things I see is this is a test case for the world. This is for them to find out if they can go in, take people's savings, what the consequences are, and whether or not they need to go from the mainstream media manipulation that we've seen for the last 30 years or 40 years or 100 years to troops on the street. So I think Gerald, that this thing with Cyprus. Now, of course, I want to point out to our listeners that, yeah, the Parliament voted it down today. But if you read what the European Union's saying and what the banksters are saying, is they're not going to let up on this. If they want the aid, they've got to do something with taking people's savings accounts. So,
yeah,
Gerald,
you're right. Yep.
Gerald, we're going to take another quick break. We'll be right back. And how long can you stay with us?
I have another half hour.
Awesome. Well, we're sure enjoying the conversation, so thanks. We'll be right back, my friends.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
Ground beef, eggs, butter, cheese, soup, sandwiches, strawberries, ice cream, coffee, and more. What do these foods have in common? They all come in storable, long shelf life food for you to save and use in uncertain times. Rather, if it is a meal or a snack, for a family or just yourself, CampingSurvival.com offers a huge variety of storable food for you to be prepared anytime. Go to CampingSurvival.com to order all your food. Eat today, save it for tomorrow, or store it for years to come. CampingSurvival.com sells healthy, nutritious, storable food in number 10 cans and pouches. Order online today at CampingSurvival.com. Use code FREEDOM and receive 5% off. CampingSurvival.com. Remember, save 5% off with code FREEDOM at CampingSurvival.com on all your prepared food needs.
Herbal Healer Academy's new summer specials. Our 500 parts per million colloidal silver, all sizes on sale. Organic liquid iodine, liquid cal, meg, vitamin D, CoQ10 with Hawthorne, colon enhancer, Super 2, natural laxative. Our exceptional product Connexin, memory power, and Super Male and Femplex. All on sale for the summer at herbalhealer.com. Also, 10% off on the HHA survival course. This is an important time to have this information. Might save your life. Nation's leader in supplying quality natural medicine and education. herbalhealer.com. Free online newsletter. Quality natural medicine supplier since 1988. We ship the same day you place your order. Free 128-page catalog with your first order. Go to herbalhealer.com today. herbalhealer.com.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
You're tuned in to the National Intel Report, the real talk radio show.
Welcome back to the National Intel Report. Again, Paul Drockton, sitting in for John Stadtmiller today, and we've got Gerald Celente with us. And Gerald, let me ask you this. Are we seeing a reemerge in Germany right now? Is Germany reemerging as the primary force in Europe?
Yeah, they are. And they're the ones, if anybody really read closely what happened with the Cyprus situation, is Schwabel, the German, I think he's finance minister, or some involved in that aspect. When the Cypriots arrived in Brussels to do the deal had already been made, and they were told what to do. And when the Cypriot prime minister walked out, they let him walk. He said, "I can't bring this back to the people." And so Germany was behind it. Now, this is what everybody really needs to know, I believe, and that is, you're seeing now, and it's being pushed by Germany, of course, the whole takeover of the central banks and all of the other banks throughout the Eurozone losing their sovereignty and being put under the auspices of the central bank, and run by Brussels, which is of course run by Germany. Now, when we look at all of the problems going on in Spain, in Portugal, in Ireland, in Greece, in Italy, in Cyprus, in all of these banks, where did the banks get the money to loan to the people when the real estate boom was going on? They got the money from Deutsche Bank. They got the money from Credit Suisse. They got the money from Commerce Bank. They got the money from Dexia. They got the money from the big German and Belgian and Swiss banks. The big German banks are the ones that made the loans out to the other banks, the big French and German banks. So what they're doing is the Germans these aren't the problems of Italy or Ireland. It was the banks of those countries that borrowed from the German banks, the bigger banks that gave them the dough. So this is what's going on, and the German government is just a front for the banks. And it just keeps going on. I want to read a quote to you, that if anybody, there are two quotes to me that everybody should remember. And one of them is, of course, the one of Dwight D. Eisenhower, 5-star general, supreme commander of the Allied forces during World War II, and 2-term president, Republican at that, who warns the nation that the military-industrial complex is taking over the nation. I mean, you can't deny it. It came from his mouth. You tell anybody that, and it's the next thing is, what's for lunch? What are you going to be? Where are you going? And now we can see. Now on this March 19th, as the criminal in chief at the time, George W. Bush lied us into war, and everybody put out those yellow ribbons and put their flags out, and we're $1 trillion in the hole, 1 million dead Iraqis, 5,000 dead almost Americans, and hundreds of thousands maimed or wounded mentally or physically. You could see, that nobody's paying attention to them. And then we have the Nobel Peace Prize winner that just took us into Libya, and now Syria's in the sights, and maybe Iran. And now we have drone bases in Niger, 35 AFRICOM bases in 35 different countries in Africa, and how many hundreds of bases around the world. So nobody listens. Nobody listens. The other one that nobody listens to, they cannot have a better image of reality, is Jesus Christ driving the money changers out of the temple. And
Amen, brother.
And this is what we're talking about. We're talking about money here. And when we're talking about money, we're talking about bankers. And when we're talking about bankers, we're talking about money changers. So this is a quote, not from Jesus Christ, 1765 years later, from James Madison. And here's what he said. History records that the money changers have used every form of abuse, intrigue, deceit, and violent means possible to maintain their control over governments by controlling money and its issuance. There's nothing else to be said. All you and I now are talking about, Paul, are the details. And do you know how tired I am of writing about the damn details for over 32 years? It's the same story. Nothing has changed. And the people will defend this immorality, just like they defend the immorality of the United States invading foreign countries. And just as every one of these damn politicians, every time it's election time, they're always talking about the Founding Fathers. The Founding Fathers will be turning in their grave. Every one of the Founding Fathers told us not to become involved in foreign entanglements. From Washington to Jefferson to Madison, and you go up and down the list. And then you have these little chicken hawks out there, these guys with cojones the size of mothballs, taking us to war. And the people don't resist. The people are getting what they deserve, as long as they remain silent. And what you're doing, what your network is doing, and we're doing at the TrendsJournal, and putting the word out there, if the people don't support us, if they don't keep making our voice become heard more and more, not only are they rob your money, they're going to take your life. They're going to take us to World War III. History is repeating itself. You can see it. It's the same story all over again. It's the crash of 1929, the Great Depression, currency wars, trade wars, World War, the Panic of 2008, the Great Depression that we're in, currency wars that are going on and trade wars, and now World War. So people better step up and put their money where their mouth is and their mind where their heart is. And a good example to follow is what happened in Italy with the Five-Star Movement being headed by Beppe Grillo. It's not a protest movement. It's a movement. It's a movement to take down the corrupt systems. You want to call them Republicans and Democrats? Could anybody say bananas and Gambinos?
Well, Gerald, I guess, and again, coming back to all this, you know, I brought up the German question for a reason. So, I mean, really, Russia could be looking and saying, look, this confiscation of our wealth in Cyprus has really been initiated by the Germans, and maybe we're starting to see where the conflict is going to, or where the lines are drawn. Maybe it's the German-controlled Europe versus, re-emerging Russia, China, United States.
I see it exactly, part of what you're saying is definitely Germany is one of the players with the United States. Don't you think the United States is a part of this game?
Of course they are.
Of course. I mean, and so here's the way it's shaping up. They just got a new president and prime minister in China, Xi. And the first place President Xi went to was Russia. So here's the alliance. They'll call it the axis of evil. You ever hear that one before? We could try it again. It's going to be, they're going to call it China, Iran, and Russia against the noble allies of the United States, Great Britain, France, and the other NATO members that want to restore democracy and bring freedom and liberty to enslaved people. You can see it shaping up. What do they call it? The pivot in Asia? You lost in Afghanistan. They lost in Iraq. They blew apart Libya, turned it into a hell, and now they're going to try their luck in Asia? I wouldn't put my money on them.
Well, I think that looking at things from a political standpoint, again, this confiscation in Cyprus, it's going to take place, folks. I mean, I know it was voted down, but trust me, they're not done with this thing yet. It's going to take place.
You're right. This is the test case. I
So
do
when they-
not agree with you more. This is the test case. They picked a country whose GDP is 0.2% of the European Union.
Mm-hmm.
The tiniest
By the way,
player.
Cyprus has a better debt ratio. Greece is, I think, at 140%, and that's based on their numbers. Cyprus is at 71%. The United States reported is 105. That's debt to gross national product. So Cyprus really isn't that bad off financially.
No. And again, this is the test case. What is Italy? I love this one. Do you remember how all of the prostitutes praised Mario Monti, three-card Monti, the technocrat that took over in Italy? When he took over, the debt to GDP ratio was 120. Now he's leaving. It's going to be hitting 130. He did a great job, huh? He raised it 10%.
Better than Obama. That's for dang sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is a criminal operation.
Yeah, they are. Gerald, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that how can Russia not look at this as a provocation, this confiscation of these expatriates' wealth? That's what I'm coming back to. And if Germany's at the heart of this thing, then my point is Germany must have known when they pushed for this that this was going to raise some major issues with Putin and Russia.
Well, already Putin has said that. Of course, you're right. And then this is what they're, they know what they're doing, and it is a provocation. He said it's unjust, unprofessional, and dangerous. Those are his words one day ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I always say this. You don't mess with the Russians. I mean, this is the one group you don't fight. I mean, how many people did they lose in World War II? It was like 20 million or something.
Mm-hmm.
The number is astronomical. These are fighters. Everything as a kid, the always thing you learn that whether it was Napoleon to Hitler, they lost the wars by trying to take out Russia. Russia will fight down to the last ounce of drop of blood from a kid. I mean, these people are fighters. And you don't take on the Russians. You're not going to defeat them. So get it out of your head. They're not going anywhere. And you don't want to provoke them. And this is what they're doing. And for what reason? Because a bunch of money junkies. There's heroin addicts and there's money addicts. That's all these people are. Mm-hmm. And they're destroying the planet. Again, whether it's Jesus Christ or James Madison. They've said it, again, we're just talking about the details. They're taking us to war. I wrote about this in 2008 when they started the too big to fail nonsense that killed capitalism. Because there's no such thing as too big to fail in capitalism. It's fascism. And I wrote, Paul, that when all else fails, they'll take us to war. And now the war drums are beating. Again, don't listen to me or don't listen to Paul. Just listen to Putin. Unjust, unprofessional, and dangerous.
Dangerous is a threat. I don't care, that's in the translation. Who knows what it means in Russian?
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. You have a bunch of... Look, this is what people have to understand. They don't have to understand it. My motto is think for yourself. Go back to the Fed minutes. They wait 5 years to release them. This way people forget what a bunch of jerks they are and how incompetent they are. Mm-hmm. When the Fed minutes came out from 5 years ago, at the dawn of the Panic of 2008, you read the minutes. Every one of them got it wrong. Every one of them got it wrong. The politicians and the financiers are very shrewd people, but they're not very smart.
Yeah, evil lacks intelligence. If it was smart, it wouldn't be evil.
Exactly. And you talk about college, these are the same people you couldn't stand in college that wanted to be class president, the head of the student council. They just sucked their way up the chain. They've done what they've always wanted to do. Be in places of power. They're sociopaths and psychopaths. And that's who's in charge.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I guess what I'm coming back to now is this. So here we have you and I agree, the euro's in decline. So all of a sudden now, the euro starts failing. We've got $422 trillion of credit default swaps held by five major banks in the United States, Gerald. J.P. Morgan, $72 trillion. Bank of America, $54 trillion. Citibank, $24 trillion. The list goes on and on and on. All of a sudden now, the euro's failing. They're not paying their debt obligations. It's starting to trigger these contracts, these bets against this sovereign debt. What impact is that going to have?
There's been a terrorist attack in San Francisco.
I can't argue with you, man. You're right. They'll cover it up, just like they did with 9/11.
Just like they did with World War II. I talked about currency wars. During 1931, Japan took itself off the gold standard. Remember, the Depression hits and trade wars. Japan devalued the yen 60% against the dollar and 40% against the pound sterling. And then the United States started cutting Japan off from its natural resources. And I'm certainly not sticking up for Japan. Then they started committing atrocities to get more of them. But it's always about money. So you can see, everybody knows that, Pearl Harbor didn't happen on its own. There was a lot of provocations back and forth. So you had the currency wars and the trade wars. And then all of a sudden you have a Pearl Harbor, and that kind of gets your mind off those other things, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. And, of course, if anybody then starts criticizing anything about the government, well, they're a traitor, and they're thrown into an internment camp. Where have we seen this before?
Let me find it here, because this is, after all, the day of the 19-year anniversary. If you could just hold on one quick second here. I'm going over some old TrendsJournals, and this is from 2003, before the war. I was asked to do an op-ed piece by Gcelente News Services. And they asked me, most experts believe that the war with Iraq will be a quick one. What do you think? They said most experts were wrong about
10 years later, what's your opinion?
Couldn't see the real scope of emerging terror, never saw the beginning of Crusades 2000, brought the line of the end of war, remember that one? And don't have a clue about new millennium warfare. I said, well, victory on the battlefield may be swift considering the massive military power of the U.S., the war against Iraq will eventually be lost. A guerrilla war will drag on until they've regained control of their country, or unrelenting suicide attacks against coalition forces have vowed to fight down to the last man to repel invaders. And I basically went to say that the United States will leave after they've lost too many men, too much money, or the will, and nothing will have been accomplished. Do you know that I started getting blackballed from the media after that?
Of course you did.
I used to be on Oprah. I used to be on the Today Show. I used to be on CNN maybe 4 times a month. I used to be on. They used to fight to get me on the Today Show, Good Morning America, and ABC Good Morning, CBS Morning News for my top trends of every year. When I came out with that, nobody would touch me.
Obviously, we've got the Iraqi civilians that are fighting for their homeland against what they perceive to be foreign invaders. Let's reverse the role. What if we had an invading country here in the United States and you resisted?
Of course. What, they call me a terrorist when I blow some son of a head off? I mean, come on. What did they accomplish of it? You know what they accomplished? Halliburton, Brown, Root, and Kellogg, and all the others made tens of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. The military-industrial complex. So going back to what you were saying is that I believe they're going to use the diversionary tactic. So whether it's derivatives, these are all details. They're only details. Whatever's going to bring it down is going to bring it down. But this is a very, as I said, they're not very bright but they are extremely shrewd. And they will do something to get the people's minds off the problems.
Well,
fear
it's clear.
and hysteria. They'll use fear and hysteria, guaranteed. And as they close the banks, they'll say, we had to close the banks because of a national emergency.
Okay,
and
Gerald,
they'll devalue the dollar. That's my belief.
We've got a few minutes left. All right, you're giving advice to the listeners of this program, and you're saying to them what? What should they do right now to prepare for what's coming?
All right, you know my saying, think for yourself. And I don't give financial advice. I'll only say what I say. If you don't, I learned this from MF Global. I had my money in a segregated account, and they stole it from me.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have your money in your pocket, it's not your money. You don't have it. You don't need any more proof. You think Cyprus is in a world away. It's next door. And a good friend of mine, I believe, has the best strategy that I know. And again, I'm not giving advice. Each month he buys gold and silver for whatever he could afford. So think about it. A couple of weeks ago, we saw, gold heading down to the mid-1500s. Mm-hmm. Today, now it's back over 1600. Just think if you started back in 2002 when we did call the bottom, it's in black and white, I call the bottom of the gold market to the date. If you started buying it at $275 an ounce, I think it went down to $252 and it went to $275, I call that the bottom. And if you started buying it every month, all the ups and downs, and now it's at over $1,600. Look where you would be today. And so that to me is that is the only. And again, we don't say I'm not shilling for anybody. We don't have advertisers. It's only from the way I see it.
Of course not. And the reality is what you're talking is dollar cost averaging. Remember we heard about that with all the stock shills? You need a dollar cost average. Yeah, the market's down, but you should still be buying because over time you're going to end up paying less for your stock and you're going to appreciate a better capital gain. And
then think of this one. All they're bragging about stocks being at over 14,000 now when they were that in 2007. They should now be at about 15,000, about 400. And gold back in 2007 when the market hit its high was trading, about $730, $740 an ounce. In that range, and now, of course, it's more than double that.
Well, I take you back to the S&P. Let's look at the S&P back in 2000. It was up to 1486, I think was the high.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden it fell down to below 800. Then it rose again to the mid-high 1400s. Fell again in 2007, 2008 to 600. It's rebounded, but if you take a look at the starting point. Factor in 60 to 70% depreciation of the dollar, and the S&P right now is sitting at 2007 prices. We're looking at literally a major devaluation in people's retirement and their assets, and they're not even aware of it.
Yep. So that's what I would do financially. And again, try to buy everything you can locally, and get in the best shape that you can, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and do your part. Stand up, speak out, have courage and dignity and respect. Have passion and integrity. Make your mark. Again, it's just as the way I see it. For me, hell would be taking that last breath and knowing that you weren't the person who you said you were or could have been. And I don't want to go out on that note, and I don't plan on it.
Well, you're not going to. And trust me, you've influenced a lot of people, including myself. And, of course, just one more time, if people want to find the Trends Journal, where do they go?
TrendsJournal.com, TrendsJournal.com, and don't forget, we try to do our very best to make it available to everyone. And the more support you can give us, the louder our voice becomes, and the stronger the movement moves.
Gerald, once again, thank you.
Hey, thank you so much. It was wonderful being on with you.
Oh, likewise. It was a great hour went by quick. So I look forward to talking with you again. Gerald Celente, my friends. Look, the second hour, we're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines, and I know you have plenty on your mind. I just wanted to make sure that let them speak, and like you're accustomed to, and Gerald always has some incredible insight into what's going on, and he's more than happy to share it with us, and we're more than happy to listen, and that's what makes this network great. All we want is the truth. Is that too much to ask for? Taking your phone calls. We will be right back. with the National Intel Report.
We need leaders to lead us, not stick us and bleed us.